In this video, I'm replacing a front wheel bearing in my Subaru SH Forester. If you'd like to see the process of how I did it, the tools I used, the torque specs I went with, and the complete process, then stay tuned. Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, as I mentioned in the introduction, we are doing a front wheel bearing on my SH Forester. The one that's in there is the original one from factory, done over 200,000 kilometers. So I've gone with a brand new, genuine one from Subaru to replace it, hoping that I'll get similar mileage out of this one. Now, I am going to go through the complete process from start to finish, showing you all the tools, the torque specs, and the process that I used to get the job done. And I'm just doing it in my carport at home. So this should give you the information you need if you'd like to do the same job. And what I've done here is just give my little work area a quick little sweep to make it a bit cleaner. It's always good to start with a clean slate. I've got the car up on a jack stand so it's nice and secure. And we're going to take this wheel off and get it stuck into the process. Now, during this video, I'm going to do little bits of voiceovers. Most of it's pretty self-explanatory. However, I will chime in here and there to give you the information that I think is necessary to get the job done. In saying that, let's get stuck into this axle nut and remove it. I'll show you how to do that when you're by yourself. When you've got two people, it makes the job very easy. You can have one person in the car on the brakes and the second person outside on the breaker bar. But with this little nifty trick of the screwdriver through the caliper into the vented disc, you can hold it in place. Now, I didn't quite stick it in far enough, so just be careful. You see here it's flexing quite a bit. You need it further into the disc, but it's still got the job done. I forgot to show this on camera, but for the axle nut, you'll need a 32mm socket. Another trick when you're by yourself is to put the wheel back on once you've taken the center cap out and lower the vehicle back down, and then you can access the nut through the wheel, and the weight of the vehicle will stop the disc from spinning, and then you can remove the wheel and jack it back up and continue on from there. Now, it's a little hard to show this on this angle, but at the back of the caliper, you've got a couple of bolts to remove from the knuckle to take the caliper off so you can remove the disc. Now, the bottom one I could get my breaker bar onto, but the top one, the breaker bar was too long and I couldn't get the right angle on it. So this is probably not something I'd recommend as hammering spanners, but with a little bit of light hammering with the ring end on the top bolt, I managed to get it going and did the rest by hand. When removing the caliper, I found that the residual brake pressure was still clamping the pads onto the disc, so I gave it a little twist holding the disc in place, and that was enough to push the pistons back inside enough to release the caliper. Now, you can hook it up onto the spring, get it out of the way. You don't want it dangling on the brake line. I just used a little zip tie, and that way it's out of your way. Now, if you're removing your bottom strut bolts, it's always a good idea to take note of where the camber is set. The top one is the camber bolt. You see the markers here, and that way when you put it back together, you know where it was before taking it apart. These lower strut bolts are 19mm, so you can crack them loose easily with a breaker bar. And while I was doing this, I realized I still had the ABS sensor to remove. So there's a little bracket at the bottom of the strut holding the line in place, and then there's the ABS sensor itself in the knuckle. Now, you don't have to remove this ABS sensor, but I do recommend it because it's easily damaged, especially if you don't remove the CV axle from the hub the way I do. Some people leave the CV axle in place, but I think it's a lot easier to just drop the knuckle down from the bottom of the strut bolts. It gives you a lot more access and makes the job a bit easier in my opinion. When removing things like this ABS sensor or even the little bracket, a step that I like to take is to remove the bolt and put it back in its little home. And that way, when you go to install the ABS sensor again, you know exactly where the bolt is and you can't swap them around and get them confused with different ones. This bottom bolt is easy enough to spin out as long as it doesn't have too much pressure on it. The top one, however, you do need to knock out because it is the camber adjusting bolt. I'll show you a close-up of these in a second. Now what I'm doing here is just pushing the CV axle back through the hub and out the back of the knuckle, and to remove it completely you do have to pull the knuckle forward and try and compress the CV by pushing it back towards the center of the car. Both of those CV joints are compressible, they slide, and when you turn the CV at the end here and compress it, you can just slide it out. Once I did this, I tucked it up out of the way, pushing it to the side, and I used a screwdriver through a hole in my control arm to hold it in place there. With that all tucked up out of the way, the access to the 4 bolts on the back of the knuckle holding the hub in place are easily accessed and can be undone with no dramas. I left the last one of the 4 in there loosely, undid it with a little gap, gave it a little knock on the head with a hammer just to loosen the hub up, and then I proceeded to forget to record the rest of the process of knocking it out. But here's me reenacting. All it took was a few knocks on each side and then it popped out nice and easily. As you can hear, this one's sounding pretty rough, so time to get a new one in. Now this is a great time to clean the surface of the knuckle. The new hub wants to be sitting on a nice fresh clean surface. If there's any debris there, any build-up, that's going to stop it from sitting flush, and that could cause an issue even if it's just a really small amount. So good opportunity to give it a quick little freshen up, clean it all out, and that way it's ready for the new hub. Now that's how it should be, smooth like butter. With this disc off, it's a good opportunity to clean the inside mounting surface of the disc. You don't want any build-up on these mounting surfaces. If you have anything that's stopping it from running true, sitting nice and flat on the surface, that could cause potential issues. This is the part number for the hub bearing for my car. If you've got something slightly different, obviously it's worth double checking, making sure you get the correct part for your vehicle. Now at this point it's basically just a process of reversing all the steps, putting everything back together, doing everything up to correct torque specs and sending it home. Now here I am dialing back the torque on my impact wrench, so I can do these bolts up a bit faster, save a bit of time, but not over torque them. So I can come back around with my torque wrench and set them to spec. Now these require 65 Newton meters each, so I'm going to set the torque wrench to that 65 Newton meters and dial them in. For these small bolts with the ABS sensor and the little bracket for the line, I didn't bother looking up the torque specs, I just did them by feel, nice and softly because they're only very small bolts. Getting back to reinstalling this cam bolt, as I mentioned earlier, you do want to mark it so you know the position that was in when you took it off. However, for me, I didn't bother marking it because with my lift kit installed, I always set it to the maximum camber value, which works out to be a little bit of negative camber, which is exactly what I'm after when I get the wheel alignment done. Now you can see it's a little bit hard to read, so I actually ended up cleaning it off slightly with the little wire wheel, and then I set it to maximum camber and went from there. Pretty hard to see in the dark, but that's 155 Newton meters for the top bolt and bottom bolt. So that's the camber bolt. You want to make sure that doesn't move while you're tightening it. So you've got to hold the other side nice and firm. When refitting the disc, it's a good opportunity to check the clearance of the dust shield. In my case, it had bent slightly with the process of removing it from the old hub and putting it on the new one. So I just checked where it was touching and bent it back with the palm of my hand. It's nice and soft, so easy to bend back. And once it was set, it was good to go. Again, pretty hard to see in this light, but 80 Newton meters for the rear bolts holding the caliper to the knuckle. So do those up.
Alright, so just double check everything. I've tightened this bracket for the ABS line. I've tightened the ABS sensor itself. I've tightened both of those up to torque. I've got to tighten this one, and I've tightened the caliper bolt. So this is the last one before the wheel goes on, I think. Looking good. Now this is meant to be done up to 220 Newton meters. My torque wrench only goes up to 200. So I'll crank that right up to 200, and then apparently for this thread pitch and this size bolt, an extra 1/10 of a rotation is equivalent going from 200 to 220. So I'll crank it up until this goes, and then I'll put the breaker bar on it and just give it a little smidge from there. So there's 200, and then 1/10 of a rotation. I guess you think it like a clock, every hour's 1/12, so a little bit more than an hour of rotation. So if I just rotate it, that should be roughly 220. Beautiful.
These axle nuts are usually okay to be used a couple of times. However, each time you remove them, technically you are supposed to replace them. And this one, looking at it closely now, is definitely due for replacement. It'll do the job for now, but next time I'm there, I'll replace it with a new one. Alrighty guys, that wraps this video up. Hopefully you found this one helpful if you are trying to get this job done yourself. If you'd like to support the channel, a thumbs up really helps the video get exposed to more people, helps the algorithm. If you'd like to help the channel, consider subscribing, it's free, and that really helps me out as well. Otherwise, thanks for checking out the video. Until next time, cheers.